Hey guys, before I put this off for another day, how about we make this thing here? Would y'all like that? This will be a tutorial about minor UV unwrapping and nodes and cycles. So let's get into it. I'll have a link in the description below for the UV texture that I used for this. The wood texture, just go to CG Textures and download it. Any wood texture, doesn't matter. You can do any texture you want. Right now we're just going to focus on the UV unwrapping of this cube. The rest of it is all just pretty much consequential. So let's open Blender, and we had just add a cube and a plane. That's all that's been done. Let's go into this. Our camera, press Shift F. We're going to zoom back. Alright, and then we are going to press Z to go up, Shift F. Alright, so we've got our scene right there. Let's rotate this on Z so that we can see all of the Hellraiser goodness. And let's delete that. Alright, and add some lighting. Now, I would normally just add a environment texture here, but I worry that you guys won't know where to get stuff like that. You know what? Screw that. All you gotta do is press HDRI environment texture or something like that into Google, and you'll come up with tons of stuff. There's tons of images that you can download and use like this. And let me show you what they look like. Alright, I have one somewhere around here. I think I put it in there. Okay, they look like this. This is the one I use a lot for testing. And it just wraps around the entire environment and lights your scene, you know, with something that's more dynamic than a plane or a light in Blender. It's just really easy. It's a one-step setup for lighting, and I like it. So I'm going to use it. All you gotta do is press Use Nodes right here in the little circle next to the color, Environment Texture. Open. Select it, open, and you're done. Set that to, I don't know, 3. Let's see what that looks like. No, you can't see it because it's not got no texture on it. We don't want that to be showing up in the camera. At least I don't typically like that. So right down here under Ray Visibility, click Uncheck Camera, and then if I re-render, it will not be there. It'll just be black. So that's cool. And turn on this multiple importance sample stuff. It works. It makes glossy look better. And I'm not sure that this needs to be changed, but I always put it on 1028, 1024. Yeah, 1024 or higher, maybe 2048, because I assume that this is the way that it maps light and how detailed it is. I don't freaking know really, but I'm going to assume that bigger is better as far as that's concerned. Check the camera. Let's rotate that down a bit. You know, Shift F, like that. Alright. Okay, now we're ready to go. Let's add that wood texture to this. We'll just go into the materials, new, mix shader, because like a glossy table will have two main attributes, and that's glossiness and color. And you get your color from a diffuse shader, but we have to do a mix shader because we're going to do two. Diffuse and glossy. Alright, now under the diffuse is the color. We're going to add an image texture. Open that wood texture. I can see my things. I actually do have a wood texture, but it's not going to look good. CG Textures, and I got this from CG Textures. You can download any one you want. Open that, and if we go to rendered, it looks like shit because by default it's set to UV, and this has not been UV unwrapped. So tab into edit mode, just press U, unwrap. There you go. It's just one plane. There's nothing to it. Now if I go back to rendered mode, you can start to see it, but the glossy is too high. So I just turn that down. And there you go. You've got your wood. Now there's no need to add wood grain. People will put wood grain in there, but if you look at your table, the glossiness on it is a polyurethane that covers the wood, and it doesn't have wood texture unless it's a really thin polyurethane coating. Yeah, normally if you really wanted to get technical with it, the polyurethane, the gloss on it will have pits and stuff in it, just random little dips and where the bubbles were and stuff like that, unless it's an excellently done piece of furniture. So I think that's good enough for our purposes. Actually, I kind of want it to be less. There we go. Okay. See what that looks like. Oh, it's good enough. You get a little reflection here, and less is more when you're doing this stuff. You know, don't go overboard and make it look like a freaking mirror. You know, it doesn't look realistic. So anyway, now we're going to do the the fun part. UV unwrapping this cube. Now we need it to look like a T when it's unwrapped, because the image, let's change this to a UV image editor. Okay, close that render result out. Open the image that we're going to use. And it is that one. See, I made another one, but it makes the cube look all crazy and you have to do other stuff to it. So fine-tuning that one. This will work for our purposes. So here's this is what we need the cube to unwrap like. And when I say unwrap, if you're not familiar with that, we need to take this 3D object and make it a 2D object. And the way we do that is we go into edit mode and we create seams in it that tells Blender where to cut it, you know. So let's go to edge select, and it doesn't matter where you start anywhere. We're gonna make an in there, and in there, and an in there. And I say in because it's shaped like an N. That's how I remember it. And that is going to make it open like a T. And you'll see that, this side will fold down. These are cuts. This will fold down. That side over there will fold down. And then this thing will unwrap like a tongue, and it will be a T. Alright. Now press Control E, mark seam. Alright, now we've got our seams. Alright. Select everything, pressing A, and press U, unwrap. Now we have a T. It's turned wrong, but whatever, not a big deal. We just press rotate 90. Alright, now it's turned right. Let's put this right about in the center. Scale along Y. Alright, so that's about right. Now we need to line these all up, because if I were to put it in texture mode, actually we need to set up a material on this so that this even shows up. Because right now if I put it in textured mode it would just look like nothing. But we can fix that. Press new, you go in here, and what properties does the Hellraiser Cube have? It's made of wood, and wood is more diffuse than glossy, really, and it's got this brass, which is supposed to be shiny, so we need the same thing we needed on the wood, diffuse and glossy. So mix shader, diffuse, glossy. Alright, now the color is going to be this. This image is going to control the color and the mix between glossy and diffuse. So, right, we'll just open it up real quick. Select image texture, clicking on the little circle there, and it's already loaded, so we click that, and there you go. Now you see it. Now the problems you're going to notice are, see how it's off? It's not lined up correctly. See? That's because these aren't correct. Watch, if I select all of them and move them, you'll see what that's doing. So I mean, it's not that difficult. And what we need to do is move these individually, like that. All right, A, B. That's already in the center between the two. That's pretty good. I'll leave that there. A, B, and I'm going to do this quick because I don't want this video to take forever. All right, and this is not. These aren't. I like grab along Y. You see how I'm at the bottom of these two on the outside, but the middle one I'm not. That's because this is not designed to be exactly a UV map. It was designed to print out and fold over and make a box, you know, out of paper. But anybody who knows how to use Photoshop could fix that if they so chose. That's good. All right, put that along X. Try to keep that about even with the rest of everything else. B. All right, grab along X. Put that right in the center. All right, A, B, grab along X. And see how we're getting in the center right down here? Looking much better. B, grab along X, and put that right on the outside. Whoop. Make sure that we're not, there's a little white part down here. Make sure we're not in that. But I think that is good enough, except for right here. Grab along Y. And there we go. That's good enough. That's good enough for, what do they say? Good enough for government work. Okay. We're not in the white anywhere. That's excellent. Great. Now let's turn that to a node editor. See, there's our cube right there. Pretty slick. So what we're going to do now is put this into I want to put it in rendered mode, but I'm not sure how that's going to work with this video recorder. Zoom in right here. All right, and we'll zoom in. This is what we set up over here in nodes up right there. There's our mix shader, diffuse glossy image texture. Now I like to always put the texture coordinates into there, even though it's by default it's UV. So now we're going to create this, mix this with the image texture. So let's go up here and choose a converter, RGB to black and white. And that's going to take the color data that's in here, and it's just going to convert everything to either black or white and different shades of black and white. So we'll put that to there. And now if we put that directly in there, you can notice that there's like a little shining spot here. It's backwards. So we need to invert this. We do that by going over here to converter, or actually to color, invert, and we put that right there. No. Alright, wait a minute. What we got going on here? It's all backwards. Actually, we didn't need that. Put that right there. We're going to add a converter color ramp. And what we're going to do with this is it gives us finer control of the contrast of the image. And I know this is hard because you can't really see what you're doing, what effects you're having on this image line right here. But you can see the effects down here. And let's move that and see what it did. Alright, that made it a lot more glossy, and I like that. Now we're going to change the glossy color to something like orange, a little orangier, because it's gold or brass or whatever the hell it is. And that's pretty good right there. I like that. Now you can stop right here. That would be just fine. Let's turn this down to 0.05. Make it a lot more glossy. Like it's, you know, shiny. But let's add some depth to it so it doesn't just look like it's sticker. put on there. We'll do that by taking the same thing that we've just done, but we are going to duplicate this, Shift D, all right, and we're going to feed this into there, and then use this as the displacement. Now you'll see that that's way, it's too much displacement. Now we can fix that by moving these sliders. You affect the black and white texture that's affecting this displacement. Right now it looks like it's jutting out. But we don't want that. We want it to go in the whole texture. So we do actually need an inverter here. So color, invert, and we'll put that in line after this. All right. Now it's too bumpy. So we need to change the contrast. What you've got here is you've got black on one side and white on the other. So the image is either going to be from black to white. Now that leaves a wide range for contrast. So what we can do is take the black and move it up to make it a gray. You know, something like that. And then the white, we'll move that down so that there's not such a wide range. It doesn't have the option to be, you know, crazy like. Now see, that looks better. Now this isn't a great image. See how it's the image that we're using. Let me go into the UV image editor to show you. It's got different tones in here, which is fine, but brass doesn't look like this splotchy. Brass is more like it's one color and then it's got lines through it. Sometimes if it's brushed or if it's polished, it's really just one color. This looks more like a parchment, you know, and I'm sure that's what they used to make this texture, was like a parchment texture. It looks like paper, but that's all right, you know. It's free, not a big deal. Look how it's kind of sunk in, and really you're done right here. I mean, you can fiddle with these kind of things, you know, non-stop. And I'm sorry that I am terrible at this shit. I make the ugliest node trees. They look like shit. It's gonna be very hard for you to see what I'm doing. Grab. All right, that's a little better. Now you can see kind of clearly where all this stuff is coming from. Alright, and that's the node setup. And really, we're done. I mean, you're done. Now let's go through the render settings. Okay, go over here to render. I rendered mine out at 4K, and if you want to do that, see, this is what it's like by default, I think. All you gotta do is just go to the end here, put a little star, 2, and star 2, enter. Okay, bump that up to 100 for your final render. And your samples, I did 1,000 samples. I don't believe that is necessary, but you know, do whatever. I always 200. If you don't do at least 200, it'll just look like shit. But 1,000, whatever, that's what I did. And then what was the last thing I was gonna say? Oh, if you're noticing bright spots in your render, I don't think we have any issue with this, but if you have really glossy surfaces, they'll create these things called fireflies, and they'll be like white pixels, like extremely bright, and they won't dull down. If you have that problem because this thing is too glossy or whatever, you just go to the where is it, at the clamp. We do samples. Oh, it's under light path, I think. Yeah, right here. Filter glossy. you can turn this to put that to 1, and it will get rid of that. I think they changed that. Oh, and also right here, I'm not sure if that, yeah, that blurs it. No, don't do that. I don't know how that works exactly. You can click this no caustics, and that will get rid of fireflies, but it also has effects like it doesn't have realistic lighting. You know, it won't look as realistic. But right here where it says clamp under settings, this, don't mess with that seed. Clamp, just put 1, and that will get rid of almost all fireflies. But it also kind of dims the scene a little bit, so you may have to turn your lighting up. But there we are. Let me pause so you can get a finished result. One more thing. Under this light paths, we need to set this to full global illumination for final renders, and that just does the maximum amount of, not the maximum, but a high amount of bounces, so you get a more accurate, more realistic lighting in your scene. Okay, it's done rendering. As you can see, 15 minutes, but I was online while this was rendering, so that probably slowed it down quite a bit. And you don't have to do this at 4K. I like to do final renders at 4K because then it looks so much better, you know, when you post it places and stuff. So, but you can see how it's indented, you know, it looks indented. So there you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Like, subscribe, and share.